Aquilo. Season 8. Chapter 11. A Second Coming. I've said it before, greed and pride are probably the main ingredients when baking a cult. They're to exploiting people what sugar and egg whites are to royal icing. Sure, you can try to get creative, but anything you toss in that isn't the two fundamental components is just spoiling the recipe, or at best, coloring it. It's alarming to see this fresh evolution of the demons I've so far encountered in Aquilo. The Hunger Demon and Hellhounds, while deadly, have never shown this level of sophistication. Even Peter and Agnes, while crafty, were somewhat straightforward in their goals. The creatures that crawl forth from the so-called inferno lack complexity in their motivations and, as a result, in their methods. Watching the two strangers flit around the room, gorging themselves off the corruption of the assembly would mean nothing out of context. But with the understanding that these are two different breeds of demons working together to ensnare locals into their web, I can feel my skin trying to crawl off my body. Lamore was right. These aren't the Pilvists, though many of their numbers seem to have transitioned here. In a corner, I spot Ian's two friends from the bar, the ones who looked about to prostrate themselves at Petunia's feet. Rejected by one messiah, they seem glad to have found another. Whatever hole in their lives was filled by cloud-worshipping left wanting. Then there's Phyllis Baker. Why is the old woman here? Is she just another gullible victim? A poor soul whose declining capacities have become the target of the foul and the needy? Or is she more than that? My imagination starts to get the best of me as I picture Ms. Baker as yet another demon, one who intentionally corrupted the apricots Annabelle bought from her. I grab a glass of cheap, sparkly white wine, the kind you get from the grocery store, and start to walk around the room, looking to vanish amongst the 24 attendees. Not only am I not dressed for the occasion, but I'm starting to notice a few looks turning in my direction. The curious and the attentive are picking up on the illustrious Miriam Dufour in their midst, the local celebrity that I assumed should be my ticket to this party turning against me as I remember that, to some Pilvists, I am the villain that took away their goddess. Thankfully, the scrutiny is interrupted by the man in the immaculate white suit clearing his throat. Every fiber of every muscle in my body tells me that this is pride made flesh. The way his smile trembles as all eyes turn in his direction, only to crack and falter when he realizes it's not enough. There's a little bit of tragedy to him. All that effort, all that energy, and it's not enough. And if what I've learned of demons has any truth to it, the whole world could break into applause for him, and it still wouldn't be enough. "Friends," he announces, his chest bulging and his arms wide. "Welcome, one and all." He strides to the middle of the room. Where once a massive dinner table took up space, only empty floor remains. It allows for this assembly, but also makes a stage for pride to enjoy. "I see a lot of familiar faces," he says, voice cracking a little, "but also a few new ones, and a few surprises, too." Those last words come off more menacing as he turns his eyes to Phyllis Baker when he speaks them. "But," his teeth grind almost audibly as he struggles to spit out the next few words, "this little soiree isn't about me, now is it?" He says "is it" like an accusation. No, he continues, pained by what he has to say next. "We are here to fulfill a promise from our last meeting. You all wanted proof of the second coming we promised. You all needed justifications for the acts we demand you commit in her name. Well, my friends, an old acquaintance reached out to me, offering exactly what you all clamored for." He reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a long, thin object. And I am horrified. Pride could have pulled a length of fresh intestine or a bloody femur instead, and I would have remained unfazed. Disembodied pieces of human anatomy are certainly cause for alarm, but they usually have obvious implications. While I would prefer no horrors at all, it is far easier to deal with the devil you know. It's not so much that murder has become mundane, but sometimes the mysteries imply forces far darker still. Instead of the more morbid prize, Pride holds up the familiar shape of a wooden spoon. Not just any wooden spoon, however, but the misshapen utensil that once belonged to the witch, Philomène Dufour. The weird one, the one with the strange and forbidden recipes scribbled in the family grimoire, the black sheep, the crone from the mirror. "Wait," someone from the assembly calls out. "That's it? You stole a decorative spoon from the Aiguillot Café? Is that what we're here to admire?" I turned to see the man I referred to as Firebeard at La Cachette, the one who hung around Ian and seemed devoted to Petunia despite her wishes. Pride's face melts into a mask of absolute fury. I can't imagine a creature of his nature reacting very well to being talked down to in his moment of glory. I've had that spoon in my possession for ages. It was stolen from the Aiguillot once, and I only got it back by a stroke of luck. And then, only to lose it again when I gave it back to the crone in the mirror. Am I crazy thinking that if the spoon is here, then so must be Philomène? And if Philomène is here, then I fear I probably shouldn't be. This. Pride raises the utensil high above his head, knuckles white with the strength of his grip. Is no ordinary item. Maybe in your hands it's just some piece of decor to be ignored and dismissed, but in the hands of a witch, a powerful witch, it is an object of unparalleled—
"Oh, for crying out loud,"
Phyllis interrupts him. At first, Pride's face drains of blood. Twice he's been interrupted in a moment of triumph, both times by mortals that I'm sure he sees as beneath him. Except this time, the rage immediately grows cold. Like cream mixed with liquid nitrogen, it changes into something completely different. Something I've not seen in a demon since Agnes was in Aiguillot. Fear.
"Give me that,"
the old woman demands, snatching the spoon from Pride's hand as soon as it's low enough to reach.
"Now move aside, all of you."
She waves the utensil around like a conductor, forcing the assembly to step back and clear a portion of the floor. I take the opportunity to melt farther into the mass of people, stepping ever closer to the door. No one's noticed me so far, and I think I have Pride to thank for that. His presence makes everyone too self-involved to see what's right in front of them. However, I can't expect such luck to persist.
"Son?"
Phyllis points the spoon at Firebeard's face, as if threatening to turn him into a frog.
"You're not at some pathetic revival in a carnival tent. There are powers here birthed before your grandparents were born. This spoon, it's not just an artifact of the Dufour family. Look at it. Look at it. See the grain. See the color. This is carved from real Aiguillot, the tree. It holds power the likes of you will never understand."
The more she speaks, the darker her tone. With every word, she is less Phyllis and more something else. The sweet old lady with the little coin purse is gone. What has replaced her, I dread to admit to myself.
"Behold,"
she growls, less a promise and more of an order. Crouching like a hunchback, Phyllis Baker puts the tip of the Aiguillot spoon on the hardwood floor. Marching back, she traces a straight line about a meter in length, the sound of wood on wood the only thing disturbing the petrified silence. As she draws the first line, then more lines in a cross pattern, something begins to grow out of the floor. The smell of burnt varnish is the first thing to fill the air, but it's soon accompanied by the odor of chocolate and apricots. "No," I murmur despite myself. What Phyllis Baker is drawing on the floor of the manor's dining room is the silhouette of a skeleton. Hardwood, probably ancient pine, melts into a black sludge that reforms only to take the shape of bones. Despite the horror and the confusion, there's still a voice at the back of my mind, congratulating me for having deduced that the apricots were the problem. Pride's lingering influence, no doubt. Once done, Phyllis takes a step back from her handiwork, and everyone in attendance leans in. They look down in awe at the skeleton of Diane Serejo, glyphs and all, reformed by the hand of old Lady Baker. Phyllis, however, looks far worse for wear. "What?" Firebeard hesitates. "What is this?" Phyllis leans on her own knee, lowering herself to the ground. Pride gives her a hand so she can sit comfortably. Judging by the shortness of breath and the way she winces at every movement, the effort damn near killed her.
"This," she pants, "is the first part of the vessel, the raw materials for the canvas on which the second coming will be painted. Nothing is made of nothing, and this is the something we will start with. Now."
Phyllis winces and her eyes bulge for a moment. I fear for a second that she's having a heart attack, but somehow pulls it together.
"Now, do you see the potential? This is no captive goddess that demands your service. There's a real and true presence, a powerful presence, clamoring to be reborn. And you will be her tools."
Firebeard nods first with the kind of enthusiasm only fear can conjure. Soon, the rest of the assembly follows suit, with many of them kneeling to take a closer look or even touch the skeleton on the floor. While I hunger to learn more, I believe now is the time for me to take my leave. Like putting together a serving tray of tasty, immaculate macarons, making a subtle exit is easier said than done. This cult, like the Pilvis that came before them, isn't your garden variety minor religion. To some degree, the cloud worshippers were an embryonic state of what I'm witnessing now. A cult based not only on the ambitions of a manipulative leader, but also on some basis of truth. If you have a cumulus permanently hovering over your village, it doesn't take much to convince some that it houses an actual nature goddess. And if you can use a cooking utensil to materialize the stolen remains of a dead witch, you can sink your hooks deep into the faithful psyche. In turn, this breeds true believers.
"I tried to keep you out of this."
I stifle a yelp as Jessica Campbell whispers from behind me. I don't know how she snuck up so quietly, but before I can even turn around, she has her finger around my elbow. Jessica is close to my mother's age, in her late 40s or very early 50s. She's also got a similar build to mine, short but strong. Where I grew my muscles kneading bread and stirring batter, she spent years carrying her 3 kids around and doing gardening around the house. All that to say, I've no idea if I could break free from her grasp, let alone quietly enough to make my discreet exit.
"I knew I shouldn't have let you in,"
she assures me, with no room for argument. She pulls at me, urging me away from the crowd. Despite her efforts, heads are starting to turn. This is no grand church with columns and pews to hide me, or large convention hall where one can easily disappear amongst a sea of congregants. While massive, this is but a dining room. Even with the dim lighting, there's nowhere to hide once the main event's impact loses its draw.
"This isn't about you,"
Jessica insists, standing between me and the assembled villagers.
"Isn't it?"
I demand, grabbing her elbow in return, squeezing my insistence through her muscles.
You people have my spoon, and that body, that's—
Shh, Jessica admonishes, pushing me with both hands so that I step through the threshold of the dining room.
I know who that is, and it's under control, but that isn't your spoon. I'm sure she'll be more than happy to explain it to you all when she's back. Until then, go back to the cafe, make some croissants, and forget what you saw here tonight. Everything will be fine.
I'm not sure if it's her tone or the dismissive words that get me, or perhaps being out of the Manor's dining room and away from the crowd bolsters my confidence, but I put my foot down, literally and figuratively. Jessica attempts to push me again, urging me to the front door, but I widen my stance and brace myself. To my right, the hallway goes deeper into the entrails of the Manor, each door leading to a different room. To my left, it goes back to the foyer and front door, where light and freedom waits. It's tempting to either run into the darkness to see what other secrets I can learn, or escape into the night and do as Jessica suggests. There's a terrible suspicion growing inside me, like the emptiness of a famine decades in the making. The dark corridors and forbidden rooms each hold the possibility of answers to quench my thirst and satiate my hunger. Both Pride and Phyllis Baker talked of a second coming, a rebirth, and I doubt they're referring to the Book of Revelations. Everything I've seen in the last few days points to something sinister and dangerous, and for that reason, I have to listen to Jessica and choose the light. She accompanies me to the front door where she let me in less than an hour ago. That time, I thought I was joining a group of locals curious about ghosts and apparitions. Maybe there was going to be a roundtable discussion about what we've all seen during our time in Aquilo. Maybe there was going to be a tarot reading. My job was to blend in, look around, identify pride and greed, and, if he was there, find Charity. "Miss Campbell," I ask, stepping over the threshold and onto the porch. "What is this? What are you doing?" I also want to ask how she went from a gentle group that worships a peaceful cloud to arcane rituals that border on necromancy, but the push of her hand cuts me off. Jessica Campbell's lips tighten as if she's struggling to keep her words contained, but whatever truth she has to share cannot be held. She compromises. "We're doing exactly what Ms. Baker said we were doing." With that, she closes the door. I'm reminded of the day I got kicked out of the institute and ejected from the cooking program. Offended, dumbfounded, and somewhat crushed, I'm left unsure what to do next. It's tempting to grab the brass knocker and demand to be let in once again. I want to get back to the dining room and scream for an explanation. More than anything, though, I feel used. I very nearly trip down the porch steps as I back away from the door. Careful not to take a fall, I look up at the huge house. I remember falling in love with this place. The black siding and the haunted Gothic architecture charmed me at first glance, and I yearned to host a Halloween party there. Those grand plans fell by the wayside. Other, more dramatic things came up, and by the time a goddess was freed and the world had settled down, I'd forgotten my ambitions. Now, at night, with darker rituals being performed under its roof, the Black Manor has lost some of its charm. Besides, Ian had never gotten back to me about renting the place. I should be walking back to the Aquilo, seeking out my sanctum. That's where the kitchen I used to hide is. It's where my raccoons wait, ready to offer comfort at the very reasonable price of a few pastries. It's where my old enemy, the coffee machine, lurks. The Aquilo Cafe, however, is also empty this time of night. The apartment above is still shared with Ophelia, and though our animosity seems to be a thing of the past, she's not the company I seek right now. And in the dining room below, there's an assortment of spoons with an unmistakable blank spot. Usually, when I need to clear my head, I'll go to Aquilo Border Park and talk with patients, but even that strange oasis feels tainted now. As I'm about to round the corner, I take one last look at the black house behind me. The flickering orange glow of the dining room is like a fire in the night, but instead of a beacon of warmth and safety, it's the threat of a wildfire over the horizon.
Child,
Olivia's voice cuts through my trance.
what's your gloomy mug doing on my front step this time of night?
Eyes wide with surprise and mouth agape with ignorance, I have no answer to give. How long did I wander to end up at Fig's Orchard? It's a solid hour walk from the Black Manor on a planned route. I'm not looking forward to knowing how much sleep I've wasted if I ended up here randomly.
Well,
Olivia asks, tightening her white flower-patterned nightrobe around her chest.
are you coming in, or are you going to let every moth in town ahead of you first?
I step inside and shiver, realizing for the first time how cold I am. My fingertips are a dark pink and my nose is runny. Judging from the dampness of my clothes, there might have even been a drizzle at some point. Nature itself did its best to snap me out of my trance and failed.
I'm sorry,
I whisper, trying to shake off my torpor.
I didn't mean to wake you. I should probably go before Henry—
Hank,
Olivia yells at the top of her lungs.
get your scrawny ass down here. We've got company.
Mortified, I listen as a loud crash followed by angry footsteps stampeded through the upstairs bedroom. By the time the commotion reaches the stairs, Henry Fig can already be heard swearing like a sailor, taking an oath.
Woman,
He grumbles.
I swear to the Lord himself if this is— Oh, hello, Miriam.
It must be something in my face or attitude, but the moment Henry sees me, the anger drains from him. His frown never disappears, but where it started as boiling rage, it's now one of curious worry. He scratches at his chin absent-mindedly, studying me with near scientific curiosity. Then, just as suddenly as he arrived, Henry is reminded that he's wearing nothing but flannel pajama pants.
I'll go put a kettle on,
He mumbles, grabbing a work shirt from the coat hanger on his way to the kitchen. Chin high, a serious look on her face, Olivia walks around the couch of her living room. Like a fashion model picking out an outfit, she looks at the vast collection of knit throws and blankets. Finally, having made her selection, she grabs one wrapped over the back of the armchair in the corner. It's a thick, tightly woven thing made of 2 tones of green. The moment the old wool touches my bare skin, I'm hit by a wave of comfort that seems to melt my very bones. Olivia has to support me as she guides my weary carcass to the couch. She wraps me in the makeshift poncho like a mother attending a child, and I'm reminded that she once had a daughter for whom she cared. Only once satisfied I won't fall unconscious or trip over and break my neck, she gives me a thorough appraisal. She picks up my hand, holding it between hers. Her skin feels just as warm and safe as the wool blanket.
All right,
She says, her tone gentle.
out with it. What fresh hell has befallen you this time?
Looking into her deep brown eyes, I suddenly realize what took me here. Why Olivia Fig's home when I could have gone to see Annabelle, my brother, or even Marie Belle Byrne? Because of all my closest friends in Aquilo, Olivia is the one who'll understand best the strange and terrifying situation I find myself in.
I
hesitate to voice the absurd theory.
I think people are trying to bring Philomene Dufour back to life.
I dreamed that night. They were nightmares, I suppose, but not of the vicious and terrifying variety. Rather, they were dreams that lay siege to the line between reality and delusion, wishes given form and demanding a terrible price. I dreamed of Philomene Dufour, my second great-grandaunt, if my genealogy is any good. She sat at the counter of the Aquilo Cafe amongst my other patrons. Her long white hair, thin and dirty, along with the filthy robes covered in twigs and leaves, made her stand out from the other customers. Yet no one seemed to notice. She watched my actions like a predator, starving to leap out at me and take my flesh. Meanwhile, I'd go about my business, never deviating from the routine, despite the threat sitting right there. I dreamed of the Hell Gate, unholy flames vomited forth from its threshold and hordes of demons disgorged by its entrance. I saw the bones woven into the thorns that made up the infernal door, writhing as if to become whole again. I dreamed of my first night in Aquilo and of that terrible noise that convinced me to sleep at Olivia Figg's home, a woman I had only just met. Except I never left the cafe in my dream. Instead, I stayed my ground, waiting for whatever was beyond the rattling door to show itself. When the hinges failed and the door fell to the ground, it wasn't a hunger demon crawling in from the night. Instead, it was the emaciated crone with her sun-baked leathery skin. Philomene Dufour had come home. At that final sight, I bolt upright in bed. Sun filters through familiar curtains, reflecting off my sweat-slick arms. Breath short, I blink to force the image of Philomene from my mind. The musty smell of a room seldom used eventually cuts through the confusion and fear. For sure, this is a familiar place, and this is a bed I've used in the past, but it isn't my bed. It isn't Doris's bed either. With the realization that I'm still at Olivia Figg's place, just like that first night in Aquilo, I wound up in my friend's daughter's room. What does it say about me that my next thought is that I'll be late opening up the Aquilo Cafe? The place is much as it was 3 years ago. Maybe a little less dust covers the old furniture, and there's a new item left atop the dresser. It looks lonely in this otherwise undecorated room. The only piece of personality in this blank space. It's a photo. It shows the picture of a young Olivia Figg embracing a child. They're bathed in sun, and I can see Niagara Falls in the background. Their smiles are radiant in the summer light. I wonder how deep Olivia had to dig to find this souvenir, and how hard it must have been for her and Henry to keep it out. I walk down the stairs, following the smell of cooking eggs and toast. If I make an effort, I can also pick out the lingering aroma of applesauce. Entering the kitchen, I find Olivia preparing a late breakfast. The clock over the fridge confirms my worst fears. The cafe should have been open hours ago. It's tempting to look at my phone to see if I have any angry messages from impatient customers or worried voicemails from caring friends, but the thing has probably run out of battery during the night. Olivia isn't wearing her usual business attire. Instead, she looks like she's cosplaying as her husband. She's got denim overalls and a plaid shirt. Her hair and makeup are pristine, however, so I know it's still the same woman underneath. "You knew Diane Cerejo?" I ask, draping the green blanket from last night over the back of a chair.
"Mm-hmm,"
she answers, pinching hot bread from the toaster.
"We ran into each other a few times. Bought a few of her wares over the years."
I sit at the dining room table, looking around to see if there's any coffee available. A couple of fruit print steaming mugs wait on the counter.
"Anything else I could convince you to share with me?"
I ask, struggling to keep my tone pleasant. People keep secrets in Aquilo, I know that, but I feel like the time has come to open up a little.
She
ponders, spreading butter on toast and putting eggs on a plate.
"All depends what you want to know. I like my little mysteries as much as the next girl, but I'm afraid you'll be disappointed by what I do know."
Let's start with Diane. How much do you know about her death? A plate full of delicious-smelling food slides over to my side of the table, but Olivia withholds the coffee. Her eyes look like they're cast from iron and her face carved in marble. Maybe a little prevarication wouldn't have been out of place, easing her into the topic instead of jumping to the heart of the issue, so to speak.
"Honey,"
she sighs, relinquishing a mug into my custody.
"the less you know about that, the better off you'll be. Stick to your demons and ghosts. It's safer that way."
She sits, avoiding my eyes to start picking at her breakfast. The appetite is there, but her heart isn't in it anymore. I'm sorry, Olivia. That moose has set. Half the Pilvists have turned into some weird kind of demon worship, and they're trying to bring one of my ancestors back to life for some reason. They stole Diane Sarajo's body, and I doubt it's for wholesome purposes. I know my specialty is more ghosts and hunger demons, but I can tell a dish by the ingredients. If they say they're trying to bring back Philomen, I believe them. I just don't know why or what that means. Methodically, Olivia cuts an egg with her fork, scooping up one half to lay on her toast. She takes a large bite, chewing slowly while studying my features. After a moment, she takes a sip of coffee to wash it all down.
You already know, she declares. You want me to tell you you're wrong so that things can stop spiraling for you. If I tell you that Diane died of natural causes, you can put that line of thought to rest and go back to the demons and ghosts.
She's right. The idea has been bouncing around my head since the night we dug up Ophelia's mother. Diane Sarajo died at the hands of a Dufour witch, and there is no world in which that would have been Doris. That leaves only a handful of candidates, but even the most likely still seems impossible.
It can't be,
I say, shaking my head as if attempting to dislodge the very thought.
Philomen would have been what, 110? Doris lived almost as long. You Dufour women have a tendency to stick around, but that's only the half of it.
I think back to the other missing link. I don't know how Diane died, and I don't know how Doris died, but one look at either of their bones and anyone can tell it's from similar causes. If that's the case, though...
This is going to sound crazy.
I stutter at the sheer insanity of what I'm about to ask.
But is Philomen dead? I mean, how did she die? Where is she buried?
Olivia sponges up some egg yolk with a piece of toast, but instead of putting it in her mouth, she studies the food. A thick yellow drop of egg falls onto her plate before she puts the laden fork down.
I don't know,
she says with a sigh.
Of all the things Doris would share freely, the topic of Philomen was one which she kept her mouth shut. The only time she would speak of her aunt was to praise her abilities and her skills as a mentor. Any clever trick our Doris would pull, she'd credit to Philomen's teachings. Diane died in the woods, and everyone assumed it was a demon who got her. Flesh and organs burnt from within, her head missing. Brand spanking new Hellgate in the forest. It was the most logical solution. Doris didn't think so, though. And one night she told me it wasn't a demon. It was a witch, powerful kitchen witch. And then, 4 years ago, Doris dies in a similar way. And we don't know what to think anymore. If it is Philomen, though, that'd make her almost 130 years old.
I listen, stunned, and a little hurt to have never been told this before.
That's not possible, is it?
But I know it is. Not by any natural means, but it is.
Shouldn't be,
Olivia confirms, picking up her half-empty plate along with my untouched breakfast.
But a raccoon's life expectancy in the wild is maybe 3 or 4 years, 20 in captivity. How long do you think the animals in the back of your cafe have been alive?
Aquilo is written by J.F. Dubow and narrated and produced by me, Amy Frost. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast platform. Want to support the show? Buy us a coffee. Go to ko-fi.com/Aquilo to donate. Aquilo has a Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Aquilo for details. Follow us on Facebook, Blue Sky, and Instagram under the username Aquilo.